How you doing, everybody? It's Wardy here, and we have played a deep dive in our latest Big Mets update segment, April 9th, 2025, as this is dropping early in the AM, a couple hours even sooner than what I typically drop this as, and that's because the Mets have their day game today at the time of recording this, 1:10 p.m. I will be attending that game as I'm actually recording this video the night prior after the Mets concluded an amazing Game 2 victory against the Miami Marlins for their sixth straight win, that being by a final score of 10-5. In case you guys didn't check out our post-game coverage over this past night, please make sure to do exactly that as I broke down the ball game to a T, innings 1 through 9, and all the key player takeaways. And we're going to further expand on some of those takeaways in today's video, headlined by the continued dominance on the offensive end and the polar bear Pete Alonso, paired with Clay Holmes and what worked so well for him in his latest outing, and why that final line truly doesn't tell the whole story of what was working great for him there to begin the season now as our key starter. But we're going to also get into what is happening with the Mets that we see at the second base position, right? We have some key news to get into on both Francisco Alvarez for the catching spot, as well as Jeff McNeil when evaluating second base. But given the current options for the Mets and Angel Acuna and Baty, we're going to deep dive how Acuna absolutely is the more deserving option between himself and Baty to get some consistent reps at second base until McNeil returns at absolute minimum. From there, we're also going to get into the latest on the farm report, as there were a lot of awesome takeaways this past night there from not only Port St. Lucie, what we also saw there in Brooklyn. No game for the Rumble Ponies as that was rained out that we saw, but they did have a key game there for AAA with Syracuse as well. So played a deep dive, such a little time to do so. So thank you guys kindly for smashing that like and subscribe button as you first chime in and letting me know all your initial reactions in the comments down below. And folks, shout out to our amazing sponsor here at SeatGeek, because when it comes to finding what is best for you and your ticketing needs, there's nothing better than SeatGeek that has you covered when it comes to Mets tickets, concert tickets, comedy show tickets, the way that I'm going to be seeing Shane Gillis this weekend, everybody. As you can see there, April 12th there in DC at Capital One Arena. I can't wait. I'm going to have a lot of fun there as a comedy buff on the side, but whether it is for my comedy show tickets or certainly my Mets tickets, because while I'm going to be chilling in the Cadillac Club there for the series finale between the Mets and the Marlins for this Wednesday's game, I will show you guys real quick here what I love so much about the SeatGeek app, because they have a grading scale for their tickets 1 through 10, as well as a color coordination scale that separates themselves from the rest. When we just take a look at this Wednesday game alone, tickets starting at just $7. So let me just look for one ticket here and find a nice seat. And already I'm seeing tremendous bargain deals, $15, $16 a pop right now, and at a grade 10 rating. It might take a minute or so for that to load. I'm actually going to lower the brightness here for you guys to see. It might be better that way, and it should be. If you guys can see that right there, what is that telling you? That's telling you on a grading scale out of 10, and right now that is a 10, as well as green, which means that you absolutely should pounce on these tickets if you're trying to get a good bang for your buck. So between the grading scale, between endless events always available there in the SeatGeek app, they have me covered for my ticketing needs the same way that I have you guys covered now with our awesome promo code WARDY10. That's linked down below the description. And if you already have the SeatGeek app, it's perfect because you click on the link and it's hyperlinked, which means as soon as you click on it, it's going to automatically add 10% off your next ticketing purchase. Again, whether it's for the Mets, whether you're going to go to a concert the way that I will be doing, not on the concert end, but on the comedy show end this upcoming weekend. Whatever you guys are interested in, check out our friends at SeatGeek once more. We appreciate them greatly for being a part of the platform here. But now, folks, let's get into this key conversation, and I need to first have a thorough discussion on Clay Holmes. I didn't get a chance to really expand as much as I would have liked to in the post-game show because I didn't have my template present, but now we have it. So let's further break down what I love so much about Clay Holmes in this latest outing, because when you guys see it on the forefront, I understand 5.1 innings of 4 earned run baseball is nothing to be absolutely gloating over, nothing to be too pumped up about. But when you understand the context of this game and what led Clay Holmes to giving up those 4 earned runs, I think that's important. And that had everything to do in the first inning. Clay Holmes had himself an early jam, allowed a pair of walks, and unfortunately a key hit drove in a pair of runs. From that point on, Clay Holmes got in an absolute groove. He struck out the side that we saw there in the 4th inning. In the 5th inning, he looked strong too. And then in the 6th, where he only had 77 pitchers or so, entering the 6th inning, that's where he had a bit of a jam. Oscar Brosman comes in, and unfortunately, Brosman wasn't able to clean up his mess without allowing a couple runs to score, including him giving up a multi-run home run to Hill, which made it, at the time, a 1-run ball game, 6-5, before Pete Alonso did the thing that we'll get into shortly, and the Mets go on to ultimately win by a final score of 10-5. So if we exclude what we saw there in the very early goings of that first inning there for Clay Holmes, he got in the absolute groove from there. And the sixth inning is something he's going to need to continue to work on, obviously. The walks are not ideal. Never want to see a guy with 3 or 4 walks through his first 4 or 5 innings, but we're going to take these successes for what they are, because Clay Holmes was as dominant as any there as a starting option for the Mets. And unlike any other starter this season, Clay Holmes gave us 10 punchies. Not only was this a career high, surpassing his previous high of just 6 in his career, either with the Pittsburgh Pirates or what I would assume would be with the New York Yankees in a multi-inning relief role situation there. What we see from Clay Holmes right now is a guy that clearly has a swing and miss stuff and took advantage of a very hungry, young, certainly high upside Miami Marlins lineup, but also has a very low floor in doing so. And you saw Clay Holmes absolutely tee up these batters, whether it was a slider that was working beautiful, especially against the right-handers, or again, getting some lefties a swing and miss the way that he's seen with the highlight reel that you guys see beside me. Clay Holmes was absolutely nails for the most part, and I think he deserves a lot more credit than what the final line is going to give him, because only 2 of the 4 earned runs were scored with him on the mound. The other 2 were scored after he exited, with Huascar Brosnan coming in relief. And I'm not here to gripe about the bullpen, because the bullpen, by all counts, has been nails at the time of recording this video. Through 42.1 innings, the Mets bullpen has only allowed 6 earned runs so far this season. And they entered this game here, game 2 against Miami, with the best team ERA in baseball at 1.72, almost a full run better than the next closest team, I believe, and the LA Dodgers. Naturally, that has since been inflated a little bit, given Clay Holmes giving up 4 earned, and Huascar Brosnan giving up an earned run as well. But all in all, a sharp outing for Clay Holmes, which has me really excited to see more of him this season. And we, of course, had Mets fans overreacting on X throughout the first inning or so, saying Clay Holmes isn't a starter. When are we going to stop this experiment? Guys, the same reason as to why the Mets aren't stopping this experiment anytime soon is the same exact reason as to why you need to have faith in David Stearns and this Mets pitching lab. Everything on the pitching end has been clicking when they have been playing far from their best baseball as a collective group so far this season. Even after winning 6 straight games and being 8-3 at the time of recording this video, there is still so much to get in sync with the Mets on the pitching end, which is mainly for guys that actually give us 6 innings of work. The Mets have yet to have one starter give us a strong 6 full innings or so this year, and I'm looking forward to when that actually happens. Hopefully it'll be there in this Wednesday game against Miami, but we'll soon find out, everybody. And we will in fact be live from Citi Field after the conclusion of that ball game, as long as it's a solid one for us to break down. But Clay Holmes, everybody, to expand just a little bit further on him and his arsenal, what stood out a lot to me, it was certainly the slider and the proper utilization of his entire 6-pitch mix in this one. Because you have the 4-seam fastball that utilized 22% of the time. It was sitting right around 92, but also at a 28% whip percentage that we saw against left-handed batters. And I actually apologize, everybody. No, I don't apologize. That was really good placement that we saw by Clay Holmes. The sweeper that thankfully, the sweeper and the slider that weren't complete meatballs. We saw the sweeper utilized 18% of the time, and he had a 26% whiff rate against right-handers and a 16% rate there against lefties. The slider that we saw, which is different than the sweeper usually is slower, has more horizontal movement. The slider is going to be sharper, more bite, and will be faster. He utilized that 17% of the time, did great, 47% there against right-handers. And what we saw, 85 is where he topped out and sat right around 84. The sinker, 17% of his arsenal, was sitting right around 92, topping out 93, 94. The changeup, 16% of the arsenal, sitting right around 86 to 87, topping out 88. And the cutter that he threw just 8 times was going from 88 to 89 miles per hour. But folks, I would love to hear from you guys in the comments down below. How would you grade Clay Holmes' outing here on a scale of 1 to 10? I gave him a 6 grade in my post-game breakdown, but honestly, if he finished with a final line of 5.1 innings of just 2 earned run baseball, I would have had him higher there with the 10 punchies, looking as dominant as he was. So again, a step in the right direction for Clay Holmes. I'm looking forward to seeing more of him throughout the course of the 162. And yes, he will continue to be a starter. Do not buy into the notion that, oh, just because he hasn't went deep so far this year, that the Mets are going to scrap this experiment. No, they're going to continue to do it, and we can fully expect things to only hopefully get better for Clay Holmes from here on. Now, let's go from talking about the pitching to getting into what has been the key offensive standout. Because the Mets scored 10 runs in this past night that we saw, including guys like Starling Marte driving in a pair of runs, Brandon Nimmo stepping up big time, which I'm so proud of for his case, especially because Nimmo has really labored in the cleanup spot for the most part this year. He's been in a lot of ground outs with guys on, and he was able to poke one oppo for a fantastic 2-run double. We saw Francisco Lindor secure his first home run of the year. 5 consecutive games now where Lindor has a leadoff hit. They've been doubles, they've been singles, and now they have been leadoff bombs as well. But even after seeing Juan Soto get on base multiple times, 3 times there in that victory, batting over 300 and over a 900 OPS, there is one man that reigns supreme yet again, and it's the same man that found himself like, okay, buddy, you're really going to give Bonds treatment to Soto to face me? Let's see how that's going to fare. Let's talk about the polar bear and Pete Alonso and how this man continues to defy the odds and looking like the best that we have seen since at minimum the 2022 season, if not 2019, going back to his rookie year. I've told you guys time and time again, and I will be as repetitive as possible because as long as Pete keeps it up, it needs to continue to be said. Alonso has the plate approach that we have been dying to see. This is a continuation from postseason. This is a continuation from spring training. This is the polar bear spreading for all fields, being disciplined, and taking advantage of having the boys on base. Alonso had himself a bases-loaded situation after already driving in a pair of runs with an opposite field RBI kind of bloop double that the wind fair just stayed fair that we saw there down the first baseline. Now you guys seen the highlights at the time of recording this right now. Pete gets a couple runs in, and that was great. That initially was looking great for the Mets in this ball game, but it is then this going in the gap right after we see the Marlins, for whatever foolish reason, decide to play in on Pete, both in the infield and the outfield. So they're like, you know what? We were going to prepare for the double play ball by walking Soto, but let's deviate away from that because that makes sense. Said absolutely nobody. That's why Gary was absolutely ragging the manager there for the Marlins, rightfully so. And for those that actually don't know, the Marlins manager was interviewed for a managerial role with the Mets during the Buck Showalter regime. And when I say regime, I mean it more so in leading up to Buck actually being hired. He denied. We didn't get far enough with him. Clayton McCall, whatever his last name is. He was originally the first base coach there of the LA Dodgers, if I'm not mistaken. And now he's leading the Charger from Miami. And I'm not complaining as long as he continues his managerial decisions like this. As Pete Alonso gives us another big game, 2 for 4 with the 2 doubles. He rips that one in the gap, though. That clears the bases. A 4 RBI day there for Pete that we saw. 333 average, a 1,139 OPS is pretty darn good if you ask me. And the Savant page, everybody, it is absolutely chef's kiss. Everything is deep in the red. Everything is in the 90th plus percentile for the most part. He looks nothing short of fantastic. So the polar bear has not just been as advertised, but you could rightfully argue he's been beyond advertised, and Pete looks like a man right now that's going to be destined to have a career year in RBIs, runs scored, and hopefully we see a clip between the average on base and the slugging that's, if not his career best, then certainly up there, pushing closer to 1,000 OPS throughout the course of the season, than sitting right around the 800s or so where he found himself this past season. I know the year before that he smoked well over 40 home runs, but Pete's contact ability wasn't there. He wasn't hitting for all fields in 2023 whatsoever. And he dealt with the injury game drilled by Charlie Morton in the first half of this season. So I think this is easily the best Pete Alonso that I have personally seen with the eye test in about 2 years now. Because this not only is better than the postseason run, in my opinion, because postseason was electric. Nothing tops that when it comes to Pete Alonso moments. But I think when it comes to actual approach at the plate, knowing what to expect, there was still uncertainty with Alonso throughout postseason up until he took that from Devin Williams' oppo and then ran with it from there. Everything about Pete's approach so far this year has not only been appealing, but it's been beyond impressive. So that's why I want to have the further discussion here on Alonso and what he's doing right. Because as of now, he's currently ranked 3rd in Major League Baseball with 15 RBIs and is currently 2nd that we see with at least 5 doubles. The guy's been an absolute dog, an extra base machine, and hopefully we see him continue to tear the cover off the ball in the series finale and the games going forward for the Metsies here throughout the course of the 162. Mets fans, let me know how you feel in the comments down below. On a scale 1 to 10, how impressed have you been with the polar bear so far this season? I would love to hear it, and thank you guys so much in advance for doing exactly that. But as we get back to the main slide here, everybody, we talked about Holmes, we talked about Alonso, and this Mets offense, like I said, it's rolling. It's really starting to click here. And you know what's a great thing when a lot of the guys are rolling, and Juan Soto is rolling, but more so on just the contact and on-base ability. Soto hasn't even really exemplified too much of the power yet. I know he's had home runs. I know he's had a home run, rather. I know he's had a couple doubles, but it's been more on just getting on base in the Bonds treatment way, as well as having his singles, and let that be that. But Soto is just so good that he hits in his sleep. He gets on base in his sleep. And the notion that he is going to have potentially his best years as a New York Met versus his time with the Nationals, versus his time with the Padres, versus his time with the Yankees, knowing he's locked down for the next 15 years at the current young age of 26, has me beyond pumped up as a Mets fan. I can only imagine what it's going to be like this season when not only Lindor is continuing to be in a groove the way that he is, which is so great to see to start the season, Alonso doing his same, Vientos once he starts to get in a rhythm, obviously, Nimmo, Winker, Marte doing their parts, a healthy Alvarez that we're going to get into in just a second, as well as what you're getting there from Juan Soto. If you get true peak prime Juan Soto, folks, this Mets team just might be one of the best I've witnessed in my entire lifetime. And so far, so good. Throughout the first 11 games, Soto has an 11-game on-base streak, the first time in his career that he's done that, which is absolutely insane. Out of all the things Juan Soto's already done in a Hall of Fame career to begin his young career, he has not done it until this year to record and get on base his first 10-plus games. And now he's on base for his first 11. Hopefully makes it 12 there in the series finale against Miami, everybody. But now let's segue to talk about what's happening with Francisco Alvarez and Jeff McNeil, because we do have a key update this year on that front, everybody, and it's an exciting one. And I'm going to let Carlos Mendoza take it away with this while I pull it up right here, right now. So let's go ahead and do exactly that. And while I'm pulling it up, everybody, I have a question for each and every one of you. Were you expecting the Mets to start the season this way throughout the first 10 to 11 games to begin the year 8-3? When you look at the schedule between the Astros, Marlins, Blue Jays, Marlins, was this very expected for you? Did this exceed expectations for you? Whatever your thoughts are, wherever you stand on the front of how the Mets have fared so far to begin the season, I would love to hear from you guys if this has either met your expectations, well above your expectations, below your expectations, because you thought the boys were going to go absolutely 162-0 because you're delusional. Whatever your thoughts are, drop them, and we appreciate you guys doing that. But now let's show you guys the clip here from Carlos Mendoza from this past day.
Jeff McNeil just hit on the field. Just what's the latest with him and how is that going?
Yeah, so he's going to travel to Florida today, get some live at-bats tomorrow, and hopefully the goal for him is to start a rehab assignment this weekend in Port St. Lucie.
Just about Alvarez, too. Is he heading to Florida as well?
Yes, and he's going to start his rehab assignment tomorrow with PSL. So McNeil will be more like an extended, getting live at-bats. Aldi's going straight to games now that he's ready to go.
Jeff McNeil.
I'm amped up. There are many times I see Carlos Mendoza just talk to the media, and I literally get pumped up right away. But when I find out that Francisco Alvarez has his first rehab assignment today, at the time you guys watching this video, hype me up, baby. Because listen, Hayden Sanger has been an absolute dog catching-wise. We know how good he's been defensively. That's why the Mets have praised him. That's why he made this team Mr. Whole Foods working the offseason. No, he's on the Mets now, baby. And while Sanger's time with the Mets will be coming to an end sooner than later, it is a good reason as to why that is. As Alvarez, we saw catching there at Citi Field a couple days ago. Now he's down Port St. Lucie in nicer weather, warmer climate, and he's going to ramp his way up there, coming back from injury, already getting full reps there. That's going to be huge to see how he does both hitting and catching, because a healthy Alvarez with that new improved swing that he worked on heavily in Atlanta this past offseason, where JD Martinez recommended him to go. And no, it wasn't Truist Park, believe it or not. It was somewhere else, a private facility or so. Regardless, Alvarez locked in and cannot wait to see what he can provide. We know we just need a healthy Alvarez, and he has all the potential to be one of the better catchers in all Major League Baseball. I have the utmost confidence in Alvarez to hit highs that we have not even gotten close to yet, and a great reason as to believe that is what we saw a couple years ago at an over 20 home run season. We know the power's there. We know the potential there is defensively, with his framing, as well as his ability to throw out guys a second, but he just hasn't had the quick pop time reaction. A guy like Luis Torrens has looked fantastic and throwing out guys. And Torrens, obviously, as we know, has been a pretty beat up so far this season, but when he's been in there, he's been amazing. Every single time that Luis Torrens has been out there, he's been nothing short of an absolute beauty. So between Torrens and Alvarez as our catching tandem going forward, hopefully before this month ends in April, and it's looking that way right now, you have to be pretty pumped up as a Mets fan, because when the Alvarez news first happened, I really wanted the Mets to go out and try to land Tomas Nido if he wasn't cracking the Tigers roster. And since saying that he actually cracked the roster as of today, if I'm not mistaken, he got the call up. We see Christian Vasquez available in the free agent market. The veterans, the really grizzled veterans, especially in the Yasmani Grandals for a bit, the Yan Gomes, etc. I wanted more of a true certainty, but thankfully Sanger's defense has been so good, and he's even been hitting. He got on base a couple times in this win against the Miami Marlins 10-5. So he's doing his part and then some. I have very little complaints as to what we've gotten from the catching position. I've been fortunate from it, and I think it's only going to get better here, obviously, when Alvarez can return. Which gets us to now our second conversation, which is not on Alvarez, but this time on Jeff McNeil. Now that we know that Jeff is going to be ramping up towards the end of the week, he's going to be beginning those rehab processes, getting in game action, Jeff is expected to return to the Mets before the end of the month as well, which leads us to the great question. What are the Mets going to do here at second base? And this is what I want to talk about with each and every one of you, because seriously, you guys know if you've been following the platform how much of a heavy advocate I am for Brett Baty. I was absolutely drinking all the Brett Baty juice pause throughout the course of spring training, and the juice in the sense of like, okay, I'm buying in on what he's selling right now. The problem, what we bought in, is a fallacy from reality. Brett Baty is once again struggling heavily to lift the baseball. He's not pulling it at all. He's hitting soft ground outs, and he's pissing off a lot of worms there in the infield. That is the reality of Brett Baty right now. And you're saying, oh, Baty got on base this past game. He did, with an opposite field infield single that he just got on first and was bobbled by the first baseman, Mervis. Otherwise, he maybe wouldn't have even been safe. Baty has not had at all a plate approach that's MLB caliber or MLB level, and it crushes me to say that as someone who's heavily rooting for him and advocating for him. But listen, knowing that time's ticking, knowing that you have a couple weeks left until McNeil returns at this time, how likely is it that Brett Baty is going to go ahead and run with this second base position? Because David Stearns was asked by Howie Rose bluntly in an interview just a day ago, stating, what's your thoughts on one of Acuna or Baty actually running away with second base upon McNeil's arrival, meaning that happens beforehand? And David replied along the following lines of, I would love to see that happen where one of them steps up. So if it isn't going to be Brett, and I hope that changes in the near future, if it isn't going to be him, I need to see it be Luis Angel Acuna, because Acuna has done something very differently from Brett Baty throughout the first 11 games of the season in his limited sample sizes. But let's start with a similarity. They're both not even batting the 200 Mendoza line, right? Brett Baty, as of now, is currently batting 125 with a 292 OPS. Horrendous. There's nothing else to be said on that. Luis Angel Acuna, not much better, a 158 average and a 449 OPS. But why am I such a heavier proponent with Luis Angel Acuna right now? Here's why. There has not been one single game where Acuna has went out there for at-bats where I felt like he looked completely outmatched. He's taken solid hacks pretty much every single at-bat he's been out there, and he is an absolute weapon on the defensive end. He had a tremendous game for the Mets in their 2-0 victory to kickstart this series against Miami on the homestand. Great defense, left, right, and center. He was working so many great plays there, back to Alonso, or to work some key double plays as well with Lindor and then Alonso. He was doing everything defensively. So I know I can trust and I have faith in Acuna there at second base and across all over in the diamond in the infield. When it comes to the offense, we know the bat will fluctuate. We know he has a lot more work to do at the MLB level. But what we do know is that not only has he been putting the bat on the ball at a greater clip, but he knows what he's doing. He's pulling the baseball. He's spreading the field. He's hitting for both contact, and yeah, I know we haven't really seen too much power yet, but it will come. If I'm not mistaken, didn't Acuna have a leadoff single or double like right away there that we saw against the Astros in the first game or so? Again, he's been getting on base. The speed has been a huge element as well. We saw Acuna come in as the pinch runner for Brett Baty in this 10-5 victory, but it was 9-5 before it became 10-5. And the reason why it became 10-5 is because Acuna promptly stole second base. He got moved over to the third by Sanger, and then we saw Lindor drive him in with a sac fly. That is a difference with Acuna. That's something that Baty can't compete with. Baty doesn't have the speed. Does Brett Baty currently rank in outs above average per Baseball Savant and 98th percentile among the league's absolute best the way that Acuna does? Does Brett Baty also rank beyond the 80th percentile that we saw in outs above average defensively, making him in the top 20 category in Major League Baseball? I don't think so. And I apologize, when I said OAA originally, I meant to say sprint speed. So sprint speed is in the 98th percentile, and outs above average, what you can evaluate defensively about Acuna, is well above 80%. The guy's been a dog for what you need him to be, and if the offense comes, great, but at least he's not a liability in these other areas. There has been nothing positive about Brett Baty so far this season between his offensive output His defensive output really hasn't been anything stellar, and we know that Acuna has checked off better boxes at this point. So we will see the Mets continue to go on with a platoon to a degree with Baty and Acuna, but with time falling short before McNeil returns, I would go out of my way to say, yes, it's time to give Acuna more reps, and it's time to let the better player between the two actually get playing time. And then if Acuna has a bad start or two, you put Baty back in there, and you go on from there. You do the flip-flop for however long you got to go until Jeff returns, and then hopefully it's a good decision, a hard decision for David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza to ponder and figure out as to what they will do with sending down at least one of them and going on from there, with the other either being a utility option or, again, platooning time with McNeil, because I don't hate the idea of Jeff coming back and not being the starting second baseman right away, but rather being a utility fit, and he and one of Acuna or Baty split time at second base. I don't hate that whatsoever. Let's see if the Mets agree with me or disagree with me, but I would love to hear from you Mets fans in the comments down below. Where do you stand on the front of Luis Angel Acuna, Brett Baty? Are you like me and feel that it is time for Acuna to shine and get some more consistent reps there? Or do you think that they should still have a proper balance of lefties versus righties, Baty, Acuna, for the remainder here of the month until McNeil returns from his injury? Now, folks, as we're going to get into wrapping this one up now, let's get into a segment that I always enjoy when I do these Big Mets updates, and that's getting into our latest farm report. Because like I said, there are some key standouts on the prospect end that we just saw over the past night at the time of this video coming out for each and every one of you. And I'm excited to get it out there because not only was there a standout that I saw offensively in multiple games here, excluding the Rebel Ponies, because like I said, that game rained out. It unfortunately didn't happen. But there are other key takeaways, and the Syracuse Mets are right around my place right now. If you guys don't know, I reside in Pennsylvania, and I'm not at all far from the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs Stadium, and they are playing the Iron Pigs for the next number of days. So if time is at all on my side before the weekends, I am going to try to swing by one of those games, and if I do, then I will probably do a recording and fit it into a future Big Mets updates as a live prospect report there, evaluating the Syracuse Mets myself with the eye test. But let's start by talking about the Syracuse Mets, and let's see what is going on with them, because as you guys can see right away, their player of the week over this past week is former Washington Nationals legend himself and Joey Meneses. Meneses batted .333 with a .412 on base and a .600 slug for over 1,000 OPS and 8 extra base hits, which leads the league in extra base hits already. Meneses is tearing the cover off the ball, baby. So I'm intrigued to see if the Mets would consider him at any point in the year for some DH reps or a backup first base option should injuries happen. But Meneses looking fantastic to start the year, and the Syracuse Mets had a lot of things working in their favor here in their latest matchup, as they went out and they unfortunately actually didn't win against the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. So I lied to you guys. I think the reason why I said I think that they had things working is because Billy McKinney, who I'm going to show you guys a highlight of right here that you guys see right down there, Billy McKinney, Billy Mack, Mets legend from a couple years ago, he's back in the organization, and he had a big 3-for-5 night that we saw, including an RBI. We also saw John Singleton, who the Mets actually signed just over the past couple days. He's starting in AAA Syracuse, and we saw Singleton rip his first home run of the year there for the Syracuse Mets. Outside of that, Jose Alzcar went 1-for-4 that we saw with a double and a walk, and not too much else to really stand out offensively. Nico Goodrum, who the Mets recently signed as well, went 1-for-3 with a walk, and Jackson Reitz went 0-for-4 at catcher. It was a bullpen game for the boys, and of course, Sean Reed-Foley, who I'm trying to see if we can get something out of him. He continues to get cooked in the early goings of AAA this year. He gave up 2 earned runs and walked a total of 2 and struck out 3 in 1 inning of work. Austin Warren gave us 1.1 strong innings. Genesis Cabrera continues to sadly be batting practice, so he is not going to get the call anytime soon until he gets some things established there at AAA. I know it's different in AAA, 100% different. The balls are different. They're a lot more inconsistent, and the results are naturally going to be different too. But the Syracuse Mets lose 7-2 in their latest ball game. And now we're going to jump and get into the latest key takeaway. And we're going to go to the Brooklyn Cyclones. Because unlike the Syracuse Mets, where they gave up 7 runs, the Cyclones scored 7 runs and are off to a roaring hot start this year. 4-0 is how they've started the year, guys. 4-0. And when we look at the offensive standouts in this matchup, first of all, Boston Barrow, who everyone needs to pay attention to. He's batting leadoff for Cyclones this year. He is a Nick Morabito for them this year in the sense of leadoff in that sense. and you're going to see Boston Burrow, I think, have a good season. He went 1 for 5 in this one with a run scored, but that one hit was a triple. And who drives him in? 2024 first-round pick for the Mets, and Carson Bench, who's batting 300 with a just under 900 OPS so far this season. Jacob Reimer at the hot corner went 1 for 4 with a run scored that we saw there, a 412 average on over 1,000 OPS. And the most impressive batter so far, I think you could argue in the minor leagues so far this year for the Mets, is Eli Serrano III. The young corner outfielder has a lot of raw tools and exciting ability, and he's been off to a roaring hot start this year. He went 2 for 3 that we saw with 2 runs scored, including a big home run. His second home run already of the season. Serrano, many in the Mets farm do believe that he is going to skyrocket, and he is one of the key guys to look at offensively to really blossom this year in the minor leagues. 462 average and a 1,600 OPS to begin the year. Not bad. Suero at first base, who had his third double of the year in this 7-2 victory, had himself a 1 for 4 game with a pair of RBIs. And outside of that, nothing else to really get into on the breakdown. Pitching-wise, Gordon for the Mets went 4.1 solid innings, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. Let's see, Alvarez was solid and 1 inning of work, allowed 1 earned run, and did walk 3, so there is some more work to be had there. Ryan Lambert, who throws absolute gas, a former pick by the Mets over the past year or two, he went 1 inning of work and struck out the side. Mind you, Lambert can touch not only 100, but we've seen him touch all the way to 102, 103 plus. So he throws absolute gas and can easily skyrocket in the Mets farm this year as long as he can have the command with his fastball and continue to dominate the way that he is to start things. So loving what I'm seeing, and as you guys see there, Carson Bench doing the thing. And also was the case here in Eli Serrano, everybody. That's the Eli Serrano tank that you guys see in the highlights right now beside me. I know that they aren't the best looking because you're not going to get tremendous quality there, especially in the minor leagues, but we'll take that for what it is. Eli ripped that Daner, and the Brooklyn Cyclones won that one 7-2, which leads us to our final game to get into, and this has to do with the Port St. Lucie Mets. They dropped their latest matchup 4-6 to the Flying Tigers, and the key standout has to be on the pitching end, everybody. It's Will Watson. Take a look at this kid. Will Watson, the Mets drafted last year, had 7 punchies, 4.1 shutty, no earned runs, no walks, 7 strikeouts. He had 56 pitches, and 36 of them were strikes. Absolutely efficient. The fastball was up to 97 and had 21 inches of induced vertical break. He also got 5 whiffs on 6 swings versus his slider, so really good looking stuff for Will Watson. We saw Jonathan, we saw Noah McLean, and we saw Brennan Spro all skyrocket in the farm last year among pitching options. Will Will Watson be the next man up? Because right now, he looks absolutely nails. Fantastic start to him. Love to see that. And if the Mets continue to get things cooking with their pitching lab, great things are going to happen with their in-house talent. Drew Gilbert, who's ramping up there in Port St. Lucie before going all the way back up to Syracuse this year. He batted 2 for 3 that we saw with an RBI. Really strong game for him and a pair of walks. We saw Marco Vargas 1 for 3 with a run scored. Trey Snyder 0 for 1 with a walk. We saw Jesus Baez not hit a lick yet. He's off to a horrendous start this year, sadly. Huge home run and gap-to-gap hitter. A lot of power, but big swing and miss as well. Ewing 2 for 4 with a run scored. Davison Gutierrez, exciting Venezuelan catching prospect, not named Francisco Alvarez, 1 for 4 in this matchup, off to a solid start this year. Rodriguez at third base, 1 for 4 with a run scored and a pair of RBIs. Colin Houck, former top pick by the Mets 2 years ago, at DH this time, 1 for 4. And Willie Fanas, who was a former IFA signing a couple years ago by the Mets, won 3 for 4, including a double for his first extra base hit of the season. And folks, that is going to conclude our farm report. I would love to know all your thoughts in the comments down below from everything we broke down. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all later on today for either a post-game live show live from Citi Field. And if it doesn't happen, that just means that the Mets no-showed offensively. There's really nothing to break down. I don't need to go out of my way to do that live show right then, right there. But barring changes, that's what we're going to do, so be on the lookout for it. Thank you guys again. Check out SeatGeek by using our promo code WARDY10 down below. I'll see you all in the next one. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.